I think life is a process of being alive happily and not to be in delusion or in the sense of suffering if we can avoid it. And every situation changes, environment change, we change. So how can we on top of like a steering wheel to see the scenery outside as well as inside, to make a good judgment, to go to the direction where I'm happy as well as others can be happy. So if that's the idea, let me discuss few references from Zen or Shin Buddhism or others, how they provide us some ideas to go with that process of life. One person, his name is Shosan Suzuki, lived perhaps 300 years ago in Edo period where there was a shogun. He was a samurai, but later went into the Buddhahood or the monkhood. And as he was to die, prior to that, asked his son to come, and he said, life is a dream. So that's what he said to his son, and then the son said, yeah, you're right. This world is like as if it is a dream. And then Shosan, the father, said, no, that's not it. It is just dream. So what it means? The son says the life is like a dream, but the father said it is dream. And of course I think Shosan, the father, is right. Even though at occasion we feel like it's not a dream, but we sense something is resonating us, that this is meaningful, the way we live. So there may be a moment of dream, delusion, not knowing what's going on, but spending time. But there's a moment we may capture the moment, living in the now. So it may not be a dream, but overall, living in the society in a typical manner may be seen from this Zen Monk, Shosan's point of view, that we should think it's a dream. And I agree with that. Recently, I posted a video with the Prince Shotoku, who is the originator or founder of the Zen Buddhism in Japan. Apparently, he was very bright. When the Buddhism came to Japan, he read lots of sutras and figured out lots of good stuff in there. One of the saying I posted recently is, it's saying just a simple word. The world is like a falsehood. It's like a dream, in other words. Only Buddhahood is truth. So, similar to the dream situation, Shosan said, Prince Shotoku said something similar. Let me talk about the Saichi, who is from the Shin Buddhism, a Myokonin. And I may have mentioned that his poems are quite interesting. And I don't know if I can remember correctly, but the one that pops up in my mind is that he is a happy man indeed, because he can be with Namida and the Pure Land, like in Nirvana, and he also come back to this real world. But the real world in the sense of world in a dream. So it's a little bit tricky use of the word. So this world that we feel typically in our mind It's a dream, is what Shosan said, and Prince Shotoku said. And I'm sure, by the way I read Saichi's poem, he feels the same. Because one of the other poems he said was that in this house there are two devils. One is his wife and the other was himself. So he's been very respected in the way he lived his life. So one painter had a portrait of him, but Saichi said, put this horn on top of it because he's not that wonderful. So what it means is that there's a delusional side of him with the horn, and then he can go to the Amida Buddha, like his parent, and feel very cuddled up and peaceful. And just saying Namu Amida Butsu, I throw myself inside of the palm or the belly, whatever you call it, of Amida Buddha. Because Amida's vow is to save sentient being, human being, from suffering now and into the future. So he has that faith and belief, and therefore Namu Amida Butsu, to confirm that. And even to say that the confirmation of Namu Amida Butsu is not his word. When it is coming out, it is as if Amida is telling him Namu Amida Butsu. That's the moment of Namu Amida Butsu, to be away from deluded state, to come to the Pure Land, from the dreamlike state to the reality. In this case, dreamlike state is the way of how we live. Confused this way and that way, making mistake, suffering. When that happens, Namu Amida Butsu can turn that moment into a Pure Land. So it goes back and forth. And to me that's very interesting because I feel very similar sense that I may be feeling like Pure Land or Nirvanic, blissful sense when my whole body and mind is clear. But that's not always the case. Living in the world, real world or the fake world, falsehood world, whatever the term is, there are lots of things that can happen. It's confusing. And when that happens, then you focus on breathing or inner body sensation. Have a calm and quiet mind. And you may say, Namu Amida Butsu. Or the idea pops up. Now is the time to leave that world of dream, to be saved by Amida Buddha in Pure Land. So if you look at and read Saichi's poem, there's lots of poems related to that two state of being. And those two states of being correspond to what I call the two dimensions of the universe, or two universes. One is the universe in our mind, and the other universe is a universe where everything is manifesting as a law of nature. Or you can call that other universe as Pure Land. Everything happens as it should, follow the law of nature. And therefore there's no delusion. Because of the mind, we get trapped into the problem. That's natural. That's delusion. And when you realize that, as if to be saved by the Namu Amida Butsu, Amida Buddha come or take you, as if the child feels safe with the parents. In spiritual journey, there's a saying, I forgot the name of the guy. There's 10 ox herding picture where it starts from living in life and start to look for the ox which represent truth, and then find the truth briefly and lose it, and then battle because it's not easy to have hold of the ox and then ride on it and come back to home and then go back to the world to help people. So there are 10 steps to go through that. But I have been always feeling it's not that one-way easy street. You go forward and then backward, as if into the Pure Land and come to the reality with the devils inside of you still popping up because of the habitual patterns, the karma that may have developed over time. So cleaning up the karma is not easy. So to that point, I think this Shin Buddhism is very profound. I was with Zen and went into it deeply, but the Shin has a very simple idea that Amida would help you if you say Nam Amida Butsu and truly believe in it. Not look like a one-way easy street to be enlightened. The dream state may be overcome when you are enlightened with ideas, creative thought, or wisdom. But it may not stay there, or you may be in this blissful sensation, but it won't last forever, and you go back to the real world, or the typical world of where we live, in a falsehood, in a dream. But we don't think it's a dream, because that's within our mind, and that's how mind functions, as if that's the reality. But then, like Shosan says, go over it, realize that dream. That's the awakening. So the journey is delusion, awakening, delusion, awakening. To know that delusion is awakening is one of the Zen saying. So typically, we won't get to the end of the story, but there's no end, because we have this hang-up from the past that would draw us into this mind framework, which we still have. Some people may almost get rid of the, left brain, the word, and the logic, cause and effect, as in the case of the stroke that happened to Jill Bolt Taylor. Then she had a nirvana, living in the right brain with the intuitive sense, as if he's in the Garden of Eden. But over time, they develop, as kids go over a period of very primitive stage to start to learn the language and gain some wisdom or some tricks they acquire from parents and surroundings. That's the way. So it's a construct we've got. So hopefully in this journey of life, we realize the moment that we have the dream and be awakened from the dream. And realize that awakening and staying in the bliss may not last forever, because we still have those hang-ups from the past, may pop up here and there. So be attentive and move forward or back to this world, as Saichi has mentioned, as the Prince Shotoku has mentioned about the falsehood of the world, as Shosan mentioned about it, and there are more. And the last comment that I remember from Lao Tzu's quote related to the awake and sleep state, back and forth, it's something like this about the traveler. He said, a good traveler has no fixed plan and no intent of arriving. That's Lao Tzu from Tao Te Ching. So life's journey can be very flexible, kind of like go with the flow. I had the post of hitchhiking. Depending on the situation, you take a different path and see what happens. Be liberated, not the fixed idea of what can happen, because if you're fixated, your mind is caught up and may not work well. So be flexible and be content what we got and do the best at each moment to make sure that we may be dreaming or in delusion. And if that's the case, use the Saichi's examples, Nam Amida Butsu. And that may trigger you, or just breathing deeply and say Namo Amida Butsu. It's a pragmatic way of living as far as I can tell. There's not much logic, well, there's logic behind it that you can study all the straws and so forth. But as much as Saichi didn't go to university or anything, very primitive level, but as he could not use the intellect in the wrong manner and get caught up in it, but found a way to be happy. I'm happy as I am with Amida Buddha. I think there's some wonderful image that I gain as if I can relate to him well. So hopefully your traveling has an interesting plan and enjoy the process. Thank you.